Yes, Enigma is a provisional title, I mean working title. Well, it's finished, but that's my father's drawing, which I've made into a painting. That was a black ink and on paper. So I then incorporated the landscape to Shoalhaven, which is where he loved to paint. And I didn't like it at first, so I chopped off my father's side and did something else, and then I changed my mind again and stuck it back on. So that's the Enigma, the Enigma variation. And this is actually the same view across the Shoalhaven River as the Enigma painting. They're all Shoalhaven, looking across, and Pulpit Rock is a little bit to the right. So that actually I did in the studio, working from little sketches, on-the-spot sketches, and then blew it up into the big thing. See, I didn't come to Shoalhaven until I was already in my 20s, and my parents were here a bit before, but they're from Melbourne originally, but we all loved up there in Shoalhaven, and that's where they settled in the end. This is probably unusual because I worked over many years. I left it and then went back to it, which you sometimes do. Painters sometimes abandon something and then come back to it years later. Mm. So that would have probably started at least 10, 15 years ago. And many layers underneath. It's been through a lot of transformations. Now this is, actually this portrait profile of a woman is a similar case where it worked over many years and over many, long time. So it's changed from the original was a much more sketchy thing. It was meant to be one of those expressionistic one-offs, but it wasn't right, so I kept working over and over. So that would be over a couple of years as well. And I think in here is another big one. Actually, now that I think about it, a lot of them have had this working over a long period. That also started. In fact, there was a figure in a man reclining on the riverbank, which I wish I'd left it now, but it's too late. So I changed that a lot. Well, it was a little bit of an abstraction of the bush behind the river. This is a kind of suggestion. It's a bit abstract, but the riverbank and the tall trees, and there was a reclining figure, which I don't know why I'm telling you about it now. It's not there, but it changed a lot, and it's got many layers again. It's probably over a period of about 10 years. That doesn't mean you're working consistently for 10 years on the one painting, as I'm sure you know. This is again Shoalhaven. Well, I used to see, when I got up early in the old days, there's some fishermen who'd come down and they'd have nets. I think they're getting prawns from the riverbed below Pulpit Rock. And there was quite a lovely sight, little boat in the dawn. So that's an impression of that. So here, this again is the Shoalhaven. The black swan, I don't think I've actually seen on the Shoalhaven. I'm not too sure. I think maybe I did years ago. But they come from Western Australia, I think, don't they? Yeah, so maybe it was migrating, artistic license, putting the black swan on the Shoalhaven. This is different. So far they're all oil paintings. This is a kind of water-based paint, tempera paint. Again, the Shoalhaven getting a bit abstract. That's done very fast because the paint, the watercolour, that was done in the summer in Italy actually. So if you want to get any sort of manipulated bit, you have to go very fast. So, here's another. I think I can't remember the title, but it's I think separation. I think some mystical idea of the parting lover in the boat, and she's inside, and that's the Shoalhaven River. Well, they're all personal in a bit, in a way, but well, that's the original on the spot. I did this on the spot, sitting down on the riverbank. Hence the very impressionistic boat. But to capture all the tones and stuff, there's nothing better than sitting out on the spot. But this is a studio painting. So I would use that in a number of other paintings as well. The on-the-spot work is like a reference which you can use for others. This is a very old one. Again, that's the tempera, as in the previous one there. So it's a very fast-working medium. I did not in the wild actually, but that's a little bit of a sort of allegory of the Beauty and the Beasts kind of theme. So I've used that quite often with an interior and an exterior wild animal in the exterior, and then looking through the window or the doorway to a kind of serene domestic setting. So this is the innocent child with the wild beast, I suppose. The more abstract Trollhäven. Now this is a pastel and raw pigment, so it's just the powder that you mix into paint, oil paint, and it's you more or less throw it on and rub it into the canvas. Just dry powder, like a chalk powder. So it's you don't have a lot of control, so it's pretty, you get immersed in the materials. And here, this is my wife Elena sitting on the balcony, just, I think it was on our honeymoon actually, many years ago in Spain. And I did about 3 or 4 of these different versions of that. This is not the one I did in the apartment we had there, but it's another version from the original. It's actually behind the studio I had when we were at Riversdale, which is up the road from Bundanon. That was the view from my studio. And I think that would be from the 70s probably. Yeah, around that time, yeah. So there's some here that are very old and some very recent. And that's the meeting. I was sitting in a coffee bar in London. Yeah. And there's a woman standing outside as if she was waiting, and then after I was looking through the window, after 10 minutes or so, her friend turned up. But it was a very touching embrace they had, and then they went off. And that's actually the same. Well, I mean, it's a fictitious character, but the same idea. I used the same composition, and the 2 smaller figures are like the phantom lovers, which haven't come or been and gone. It's up to the viewer to interpret it, really. That's Elena, my wife, downstairs. Yeah. And we were staying in Sydney in a nice little hotel, Hughenden. It's up in up top of Oxford Street somewhere. Anyway, it's a rather old style colonial, lovely building, and the rooms, some of the rooms look out onto a corridor, so the window actually looked inside into the interior of the hotel. So there's a lovely light coming in, and she was sitting on the bed. So that's another one that I did. The original sketch I did in the hotel was very small, but I did big versions. This is England, the English countryside, and this is Italy, in Tuscany, with the snow on the hills in the distance is quite unusual to see, because it's usually covered. There's not that they don't have snow there, but it's usually hidden from view. And this is the same Italy, yeah, and that's near Pisa, a bit further down the coast from that one. and they're all on the spot, these 3 Italians. That is one I did in Italy again, near Carrara, where the marble comes from, Michelangelo's marble. So I just left, put Elena on the plane going back to London.
Yeah.
And so I felt a bit lonely, so that's me there by myself in the sunset.
In the Burgundy?
In the Burgundy, in the sunset. Well, I wasn't there because I was painting it, but
yeah.
and it was sunsetting, so it was quite fond of that as a sentimental item.